Just recently, Jimmy Kimmel, the award-winning Jimmy Kimmel, is now without a job. But some believe that this could be bigger than just him being out of a job. Many are saying that his suspension, it shows that media is in the process of being censored and under attack by the powers that be. Now, we do know the First Amendment grants Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof or abridging the freedom of speech or of the press or the right of a people peaceably to assemble and to petition the government for redress of grievances. Let's take a listen to what others have to say, starting with Don Lemon.
This is really scary. The First Amendment is over. Freedom of speech. Have you seen what the Pentagon is doing? They are ordering reporters to get approval on the information that they can take or give to the press or disseminate. This is censorship, dictatorship at its highest. It's ridiculous. We need to stand up and fight. When the First Amendment is gone, freedom of speech, democracy is over. By the way, this is from the Department of Defense, which is now the Department of War. Good Lord.
We have some major news right now. We are facing one of the largest attacks on the First Amendment and free speech in recent history. And those on the right are actively embracing cancel culture, what they've derided for many years. And they're doing it in the name of Charlie Kirk. And this isn't even a partisan issue because there are some even on the right who aren't comfortable with what's happening right now. Jimmy Kimmel's show was suspended. The View is about to be targeted. And anyone who doesn't agree with this administration could be on the chopping block next. Truly, the First Amendment has never been under attack like this in recent memory. It is getting really bad, and it's getting really bad fast. And what we're seeing happen right now is essentially using Kirk's killing as a way to target political opponents. And it's only about to get worse. There are now reports that the administration may soon target nonprofits without any evidence. Protesters may soon be charged with RICO violations, that's racketeering, and so much more. Well, now's the time to fight back, to continue using your voice. I'll always use my voice. Spread the word and follow for more.
All right, we have pretty big news. A final compromise has been made between Washington and Beijing on whether TikTok will be here to stay in the United States or not. According to Reuters, yes, the app is here to stay. However, under the condition that 6 of the 7 board seats for the company will be held by Americans. A White House official stated that only 1 of the 7 board seats will be given to China's ByteDance, and Washington will be in control of the rest of the app. The White House also stated that they will have control over TikTok's algorithm, which probably means that we will see less political discourse. The agreement also stated that all the data will be handed over to the United States and to its company, Oracle. They have previously worked with the government on a number of different requests, so let me know what you think and spread the word around.
All right, y'all. So I need y'all to stop scrolling because TikTok's future is not as clear as Trump says it is. Both Republicans and Democrats have already said that they'll fight any compromise that doesn't cut ties with China completely. So right now, TikTok's future is still up in the air. Trump is pushing to say it's close, but without China confirming it, nothing is locked in. Some experts are warning that if Beijing refuses full divestment, Trump may have no choice but to ban TikTok outright. So what do you think?
To some who are history buffs, they see the similarities to Nazi Germany, and they feel that this administration knows exactly what they're doing. Let's take a trip down memory lane.
From their rise to power to the murder of 6 million European Jews in the Holocaust, the Nazis relied on a powerful weapon: propaganda. Propaganda is biased information designed to shape public opinion and behavior. Adolf Hitler and other Nazi leaders were skilled propagandists who used many techniques to spread their messages. The Nazis relied upon propaganda to create a society where only Germans they considered racially pure belonged. Jews and other groups were excluded. After Hitler became chancellor in 1933, the Nazis started to take control of the media. They shut down independent newspapers and seized authority over radio, film, newsreels, theater, and music productions. Soon, the Nazis controlled almost all media accessible to the German population and used this power to spread propaganda in different ways. They utilized symbols, like the swastika, to promote political allegiance, nationalism, and Nazi ideology. Hitler designed the Nazi flag in 1920 and transformed it into the trademark of the Nazi Party. It became a part of everyday life and a potent political tool. They used slogans that simplified their messages to just a few memorable words or phrases, like calling Jews the scourge of humanity, or recruiting children to join the Hitler Youth. The Nazis updated their propaganda strategies to improve effectiveness and appeal to a wider range of people. Beginning in the 1920s, radio emerged as a worldwide sensation. For the first time, people could listen to news and entertainment in their homes. The Nazis quickly recognized the power of this new medium. They commissioned a low-cost radio called the People's Receiver, allowing millions more Germans to buy radios and listen from their own homes. Under Nazi rule, all German films would become subject to censorship and control. They produced films to demonize Jews by comparing them to rats and drawing on other negative stereotypes, while also portraying the supposedly ideal pure German. The Nazis used all of these propaganda techniques to exclude, demonize, and isolate Jewish people. They showed the world how dangerous propaganda could be in the hands of experts.
In other words, Hitler's designated person came up with a way to force people to stop thinking and allow the government to think for them. Now, this is just my opinion. This is a form of big government when you allow the government to have free reign over media. There's a quote out there that says, "Think for yourself or others will think for you without thinking of you." This type of propaganda proved to be very detrimental to the Jews and people who were disabled, along with other minorities. The media propaganda was so effective that you had Jewish doctors, lawyers, engineers, and people of that magnitude who were cast to the side, and regular Germans said nothing. Matter of fact, they turned a blind eye because these people were seemingly the Jewish problem. Hitler's designated mastermind weaved his way into all forms of media.
Traitors like communists, Jews, and other minorities. In 1939, with the invasion of Poland, Hitler launched the Second World War and implemented his brutal final solution to what he called the Jewish problem. It was estimated that 5 to 6 million Jews, up to 2/3 of all Jews living in Europe before the war, were starved, tortured, used as slave labor, and systematically murdered in Nazi death camps like Auschwitz during the Holocaust. How was Hitler able to get away with such unimaginable atrocities? The truth is that none of it would have been possible without Hitler's propaganda machine. Within weeks of the Nazis taking power, Hitler established the Ministry for Popular Enlightenment and Propaganda to spread National Socialist ideas, and he was very clear about the ministry's purpose. In 1924, Hitler was quoted as saying that propaganda's task is not to make an objective study of the truth insofar as it favors the enemy and then set it before the masses with academic fairness. Its task is to serve our own right, always and unflinchingly. At the head of this all-important ministry was a man named Joseph Goebbels. Goebbels was a gifted speaker and a talented propagandist, and he would go on to be the man largely responsible for the German people's favorable opinion of the Nazi regime. The Nazis' propaganda campaigns were so successful because they targeted the weaknesses and aspirations of different classes of Germans. Under Goebbels' direction, the ministry crafted unique messages for different audiences and used advanced advertising techniques for the day to spread their nefarious ideas throughout German society. The military rearmament campaign was a clear violation of the Versailles Treaty, but also created many jobs in a struggling economy and helped the Nazis secure the support of the working classes. Messages targeting business owners who had suffered after the war placed the blame for all of Germany's recent troubles on communists and Jews, and claimed that Germany had been stabbed in the back and betrayed by foreign aggressors after World War I. The key themes of propaganda targeting the middle and upper classes focused on the supposed purity and racial supremacy of the German people. Nazi propaganda infiltrated all areas of German life, from education and industry to science and entertainment, and the ministry used all forms of media to spread their messages and present Germany as the defender of Western culture. Art and radio and music and film and theater were all harnessed to further the Nazis' agenda. Everything from the Nazis' uniforms to the party's strict hierarchy echoed a strong military theme and appealed to Germans who wanted to regain the country's former glory as a military power. War was glorified as a way for the Germans to avenge themselves against their enemies, and a propaganda campaign rebranded the post-war years as part of a 30 Years' War, one that started in 1914 with the onset of World War I, and one that wouldn't end until Germany was victorious and restored to its former glory. Painted in this light, the Nazis were able to convince the German public that their enemies were planning to attack them at any moment, and the Nazis were able to claim that the invasion of Poland at the start of World War II was simply an act of self-defense. This militaristic theme was on prominent display during the many rallies held by Hitler. Nazi Party rallies were held annually in Nuremberg to display the power and might of the Nazi regime and gain popular support for the party. Often lasting for more than a week, thousands of spectators would flood the fairgrounds to attend folk festivals and watch parades of specially selected SS and military troops who best represented the Aryan ideal as they marched through the grounds, turning to Hitler, who was situated at the very top of the massive grandstands, to recognize him with the signature Nazi salute. The Nazis knew that it wasn't enough to convince the adult Germans to follow them. They had to target the next generation of Germans and turn them into devoted Nazis too. In 1937, Hitler outlawed the Boy Scouts and all other youth groups except for his own version, the Hitler Youth. Under the guise of typical scouting activities like hiking, camping, and survival training, the Hitler Youth was a way for the Nazis to remove children from the influence of their parents and indoctrinate them into their anti-Semitic ideology. The program was so effective that many children would denounce their parents or even report them for behaving in ways the Nazis considered unacceptable, such as being tolerant towards Jews. The real goal of the Hitler Youth, though, was to create more soldiers for the German army, and over time the boys' branch of the group became more and more militaristic, training young boys to march, handle weapons, and prepare for war. The Nazis had complete power over German newspapers and were able to control what news the German people read. They used newspapers like Die Stürmer, the Attacker, to further their anti-Semitic agenda, especially in periods prior to the passage of anti-Semitic legislation. Before the 1935 Nuremberg race laws were enacted, the Nazis used newspapers extensively to gain acceptance or at least tolerance of their new racist policies. Under the new laws, anyone with 3 or 4 Jewish grandparents, regardless of whether they were practicing Judaism or self-identified with their Jewish roots, were excluded from citizenship, denied political rights, and forbidden from marrying anyone of German blood. Graphic cartoons in Die Stürmer portrayed Jews as hideous and frightening subhuman enemies of the German people, obsessed with money, sex, and power. The Nazis were portrayed as simply stepping in to restore order, and the German people were encouraged to stand aside and passively accept their horrible treatment of Jews. One of the Nazis' greatest propaganda weapons was the film industry. The Nazis were suspicious at first since they thought that the film industry was controlled by Jews, but Goebbels saw the opportunity to influence the thoughts and beliefs of the German people through film. He purged the industry of undesirables and offered high-profile positions and unlimited resources to those who were loyal to the Nazi cause. Some films focused on depicting Germans as racially, culturally, and militarily superior and glorified the Nazi Party. One of Goebbels' favorite directors was Leni Riefenstahl, and she directed many films for the Nazis, including Triumph of the Will, an aesthetically pleasing film covering the 1934 Nazi Party rally. Other films had a darker theme. The Eternal Jew, directed by Fritz Hippler, demonized the Jewish people as subhuman, wandering cultural parasites who were bent on destroying German culture. In the years leading up to the start of World War II, the Nazis were making little effort to hide their violations of the Versailles Treaty and were being incredibly blatant about their horrific ideas and plans. So why did no one stop them? In short, their propaganda machine was working just as hard outside of Germany as it was within the country. In the days before the internet, it was much easier for governments to control the narrative and take charge of what outsiders were allowed to see about the inner workings of their country. They took steps to mislead foreign governments into thinking the Nazis were simply making reasonable demands to rebuild their country, while downplaying their anti-Semitic rhetoric and increasingly violent treatment of Jews. Just 3 years before the onset of World War II, Nazi Germany hosted the 1936 Olympic Games, inviting the world into their country in the midst of their remilitarization and anti-Semitism. This event was yet another grand propaganda campaign designed to fool the world and bolster the German people. Though Jewish German athletes were forbidden to compete in the games, the Nazis toned down their anti-Semitic rhetoric in the papers and radio, and they cleaned up their cities, removing Jews unwelcome signs and blatantly racist posters. Visiting athletes and delegates were blissfully unaware of the true extent of the Nazis' hatred for the Jews and their increasingly violent treatment of them. Beloved Nazi film director Leni Riefenstahl filmed the entire event for use as pro-German and pro-Nazi propaganda in the months and years to come, showcasing the Nazis as heroic leaders who had turned their country around and had shown the world how superior the German people were. Later, as World War II dragged on, the world finally began hearing whispered rumors of the atrocities being committed in Nazi concentration camps. The propaganda machine once again went to work to quash these reports. The Nazis went so far as to allow the International Red Cross to visit one of these camp ghettos, inviting representatives to tour the Theresienstadt camp in modern Czech Republic. There, Red Cross officials saw a respectable, if crowded, ghetto where Jewish residents were treated benevolently, fed adequately, and put to work under humane conditions. The Nazis even made a film about the camp to reassure the German public that nothing sinister was going on. But it was all lies. In reality, the camp had undergone an extensive beautification campaign prior to the visit, and as soon as filming was over, the cast, aka the prisoners, were rounded up and shipped off to the notorious Auschwitz death camp for extermination. Thankfully, in the end, the Nazis lost World War II, and both Hitler and Goebbels committed suicide in an underground bunker to avoid being held accountable for their crimes. In the aftermath of the war, the reality of the atrocities committed in the Nazi death camps were made known to the world so that hopefully we can avoid repeating them. Understanding propaganda is the first line of defense against ever again allowing a brutal and hateful dictator to commit such horrible crimes. It may have been easier to control the message in the 1930s, but the internet age presents its own challenges when it comes to fake news, disinformation, and propaganda. According to Simon Fraser University in Canada, there are some simple steps we can all take to spot propaganda and avoid falling victim to it. In the immediate aftermath of a big news event, the news outlets will always get it wrong. Wait for more information. Don't trust anonymous sources or sources that only cite other news outlets, and take the time to compare multiple sources. Pay close attention to the language used by media outlets. For example, the phrase "we are getting reports" could mean anything at all. And finally, some of this is on us. Beware of reflexive sharing. Don't share sensational news on social media based on your first reaction. Do your due diligence before hitting that share button. Following these steps can help to ensure that nothing like Hitler's propaganda machine can be allowed to manufacture outrage, sow hatred, and incite violence ever again.
This couldn't possibly happen in America because in America, we are taught to be free thinkers and think for ourselves, but is that really the case in 2025? If you've been watching the news, we do know that in the wake of Jimmy Kimmel being fired, Ted Cruz has been speaking out boldly against what has happened. Does it make him weak because he questioned those in authority at the FCC, or does it bring about a conversation that's necessary? Take a listen at some more things that happened in Nazi Germany.
Interesting here in Berlin that people often walk right by. Beneath this glass, you'll see huge underground bookshelves, but they're empty. You see, in 1933, on this very square, a group of Nazi students burned over 20,000 books by Jewish, communist, and liberal authors in an act of literary cleansing, one of the largest and most infamous book burnings. In 1995, these empty shelves were installed by an Israeli artist. They have space for 20,000 books, the same number burned on that infamous day. And engraved here is a chillingly prophetic quote from an 1820 play by German Jewish author Heinrich Heine.
That was but a prelude. Where they burn books, they will ultimately burn people as well.
After taking a trip down memory lane, the only thing I can think of in modern day is Project 2025 and Alligator Alcatraz. Let's take a listen to some people as they explain.
Project 2025 is rooted in Christian nationalism. We all know that Donald Trump is not religious. I doubt he's ever opened a Bible. But Trump is surrounded by religious extremists. As long as they give him power, he'll give them their policies, just like he did when he overturned Roe v. Wade. The man who is rumored to be chief of staff in a second Trump administration is a self-proclaimed Christian nationalist. In Project 2025, they're already planning to ban abortion nationwide, ban IVF, ban contraception. They're even talking about banning what they call recreational sex. In my view, this is the Christian Taliban. They are perverting my Christian faith and subverting our American democracy. For those in blue states, Project 2025 is theoretical. But for those of us living in red states, Project 2025 is already here. I know what's coming because I see it every day at the Texas Capitol. Banning books, banning abortion, forcing every teacher to display the 10 Commandments, replacing school counselors with untrained, unsupervised religious chaplains, defunding public schools to subsidize private Christian schools, teaching Bible stories in our state curriculum as historical fact. We are sleepwalking toward theocracy in this country, and we must all act with the urgency that this moment demands.
Questions are mounting over what happened to hundreds of immigrants once held at Florida's controversial detention center known as Alligator Alcatraz. According to the Miami Herald, more than 1,000 detainees who were recently released or transferred from the site no longer appear in ICE's public tracking system. Nearly 800 have no record at all. Another 400 are listed with a vague note that simply says, "Call ICE for details." This comes after a federal judge ordered the facility to stop taking new detainees and begin winding down operations following reports of unsafe conditions and a lack of oversight. Advocates say this disappearance is not just a glitch. They warn that some detainees may have been deported without due process or moved to undisclosed facilities where lawyers and families can't reach them. ICE insists there's no wrongdoing, but they haven't provided clear answers about where these people are or whether they had pending hearings before removal. For families, this silence is devastating. For legal observers, it raises red flags about transparency, human rights, and whether constitutional protections are being respected. This should alarm all of us. If detainees can vanish without a trace, we have no way of knowing if their rights were protected or violated behind closed doors.
This is America, and although the people who just spoke, who you just heard from, feel one type of way, you have MAGA supporters who say this.
This is why we're going to go after the administrative state, not just the 2 million basic billets in the civilian side of the government, also the contractors, 8 million contractors. We're going after all of it, and we're going to take it apart, and we don't care what the mainstream media thinks about that.
Shut down the FBI. Shut down the ATF, shut down the CDC, shut down the U.S. Department of Education, fire 75% of the federal bureaucrats in Washington, D.C., and send them home packing because they never should have had that job in the first place.
Again, this is America. Some people are outraged because of what happened to Jimmy Kimmel, and they say they feel this is a bigger picture, and this is not Nazi Germany. This is America, where you are allowed to criticize those who are political figures. Former President Obama was criticized a lot. He never shut the media down.
And former Republican congressman and former senior advisor for the January 6th Select Committee, Denver Riggleman. All right, got some news from CNBC that we're going to read right now. This is Donald Trump talking to reporters, suggesting the federal government might revoke the licenses of broadcast television networks that are, quote, against me. So let me read it. There is a license. I'll give you an example, Trump told reporters. I have read someplace that the networks were 97% against me. Again, 97% negative. And yet I won, and easily, all 7 swing states. They're 97% against. They give me only bad press. They're getting a license. I would think maybe their license should be taken away. The president said that decision will be up to Brendan Carr, the chairman of the Federal Communications Commission. I think Brendan Carr is outstanding. He's a patriot. He loves our country, and he's a tough guy. So we'll have to see. Tim, take it away.
Well, I mean, I don't even think that it should be in the frame of cancel culture, right? Because we can all debate what we think about cancel culture and whether that's good or bad. But that's like not what this is. This is the federal government pressuring media companies to silence critics of the president. I mean, this is straight out of the authoritarian playbook. It is an attempt to silence speech directly from the government. And it's also corruption, right? And I think it's as much a corruption. It's certainly more of a corruption story than is a cancel culture story, because what you had here, in addition to what Brendan Carr said yesterday that you just played with Benny Johnson, he also mentioned that the affiliates should act. And this is an important context because Nexstar is I think, the biggest affiliate group. What we mean by affiliates is like the local ABC stations, right? They're run in cities around the country. And they're trying to do a merger with Tegna. They're trying to acquire Tegna, and they need Brendan Carr to approve it. And Nexstar was actually first to say that they're going to take Jimmy Kimmel off the air. And they said it a couple hours after Brendan Carr, the head of the FCC, was like, I really want the affiliates to act on this. I mean, that is this is direct pressure from the government. And this is a company that is folding to pressure from the government, that is silencing speech because they want profits, because they want to merge. There's just no other way to see it other than that. And I think that, demonstrates, I think, more accurately like what we're looking at here.
We were going to talk specifically about Jimmy Kimmel, but with Trump's comments, this does feel much broader now, saying that he's going to go after the broadcast networks because he says they're 97% against him. It reminds me of something they did during the 2016 campaign. They literally went through reporters' tweets and then did a percentage of whether that reporter was on their side. And they came after some reporters.
I don't know when it's going to hit the news of what happened today, but the blowback from this whole ABC News canceling Jimmy Kimmel Live is historic. Not only are people canceling their Hulu app, their Disney Plus apps, their ABC apps, people are boycotting Marvel, studios, Marvel Comics, movies, and any Disney movie. People are protesting outside of Disney in Burbank today. People are canceling Disney cruises, and people are canceling trips to the Disney parks, Disney World and Disneyland here in California. So screw Disney, screw ABC. You were concerned about the FCC and Donald Trump having power over you. And remember, you make your money off the people, not off the... So that was your mistake, getting scared by the FCC. You should be scared by the people who put food on your table, and that's us. And you're canceled.
Is what happened to Jimmy Kimmel government overreach, or is this something that was truly necessary? You decide. Leave us a comment in the comment section. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell for notification. Angela Buckney here, the voice behind the mic.